I don't think Bill Maher intentionally meant to do this.
Are we confusing equality of opportunity with trying to guarantee equity in outcomes? Okay, that's interesting because I think this word equity has come into the language in the last few years, and before that we didn't hear it a lot. And I think a lot of people hear equity and they hear equality. That like it's the same word, and it's not the same word in the same concept. So how would you differentiate between equity and equality?
Well, equality, we talk about, I don't know what the answer to that is. Come me to think of it, equality is equality of opportunity. All right? We live in a society, we want all people to have whatever color your skin is.
Equity, I think, is more guarantee of outcome, is it not?
I think so. I think it's
okay. So which side do you come down on?
Equality.
Equality.
Bill Maher tripped up socialist Bernie Sanders.
Let's get ready to rumble! You can't handle the truth. I'm surviving on the top of the line!
Now, Bill Maher is absolutely right. There's a lot of talk going on out of Washington politicians right now about equity versus equality. And I think that many of them are counting on that the average American, when they hear equity, just automatically thinks equality. And Bill Maher was absolutely spot on. He was correct in pointing out that equity is not equality. In the United States, we uphold, and our Constitution is built around the concept of liberty. Now, I know what you're thinking. Well, Pastor Marty, there are other nations that support liberty. Well, that's true. France has a motto: liberty, equality, fraternity. We do not have equality as far as outcome. It's not enshrined as a right in our Constitution. When we say that all men are created equal, meaning all men are equal before the law, that no one is to be above the law. There is not supposed to be a concept here in the United States that if you come from, quote, a royal family, that the law does not apply to you. And this, of course, would feed in directly as to one of the reasons why the Pilgrims wanted to come here. Was not only for religious freedom, but the whole concept that was supposed to be enshrined in the Magna Carta, that the ruling sovereign was no longer exempt to his own laws, but rather he was to be subject to the laws that he created, that it wasn't just about, well, laws are for thee, but not for me. And the Magna Carta was supposed to correct all that. But the Pilgrims, the early colonials, wanted to make sure that in the fledgling government of the United States of America, that was absolutely the understanding that all men were to stand before the law equal, and there was to be equal application. Now, we understand that initially our country did not live up to that, but that was the ideal. That's what's enshrined in our Constitution. The idea of everybody ending up equal, that's a European value. And the only way you get there is through socialism, because when you guarantee an outcome, you have automatically forfeited somebody else's liberty.
Are we confusing equality of opportunity with trying to guarantee equity in outcomes? Okay, that's interesting because I think this word equity has come into the language in the last few years, and before that we didn't hear it a lot. And I think a lot of people hear equity and they hear equality. That like it's the same word, and it's not the same word in the same concept. So how would you differentiate between equity and equality?
Well, equality, we talk about, I don't know what the answer to that is. Come me to think of it, equality is equality of opportunity. All right? We live in a society, we want all people to have whatever color your skin is.
Equity, I think, is more guarantee of outcome, is it not?
I think so. I think it's
okay. So which side do you come down on?
Equality.
Equality.
Now, I have told you this illustration before, and I'm going to tell it again. when my sons were young and playing Little League, I ended up becoming the Little League president for our community because I went to a league meeting one night where the person who wanted the job was basically espousing a new set of rules just for our local community Little League because she, quote, wanted it to be fair for everybody. And whenever I hear that term, we're going to make it fair for everybody, you automatically know to make it fair for everybody, somebody is going to be treated unfairly. And her proposals were things like if a child tries to catch the ball and he drops it, so that he doesn't feel bad, we need to count that as an out. We need to count that as a caught ball. And nobody was saying anything, and I could tell nobody agreed with her. But this was the People's Republic of New York, so nobody wanted to push back on this lunacy, except me. So I stood up and I said very respectfully, but what about the kid who hit the ball? That's not fair to that person. They hit the ball. They did what was expected of them. They're safe. And now they're being called out. How is that fair to them? And this woman, I kid you not, she thought for a moment. She said, well, we can do both. We can count that as an out, even though he dropped the ball, but we can let the batter still have first base and run the bases. We just won't count their run. And I'm thinking, this is insane. This is what happens when we try to, quote unquote, we're going to make it fair for everybody. You automatically make it fair for somebody else. Usually, somebody who can actually perform or do the task that you're now rewarding the person that can't. There's nothing wrong with kids failing sometimes. My kids failed at things. I have failed at things. You have failed at things. There are life lessons we learn from failing. Sometimes the only way we can really understand how to succeed is to first fail. If everything just gets handed to us, we end up with a nation filled with entitled people. Oh, wait, what am I saying? That's exactly what we're dealing with. And this whole concept of we have to be equitable. In other words, we have to reward everybody equally. We're not going to worry about their ability or lack thereof. We're not going to worry about their character or lack thereof. We're not going to worry about whether or not what they do brings that they contribute positively into the culture, into the community. That's all irrelevant. We're just going to make it equitable for everybody. Everybody gets the same outcome. Therefore, then, nobody has to actually achieve or excel. Again, I cite back to the Chris Rock special that some are still contending, well, he was still espousing woke policies in. He was and he wasn't. He did a masterful job at actually smacking down some of the things that, when you first listen to it, sounds like he's in support of, but keep listening. And one of the things that he talked about, that in our nation, the biggest addiction, the biggest problem we have right now really isn't drugs, it's attention. People want attention. Look at me, look at me, look at me, look at me. It used to be that people got attention who did something. They had achieved something. They invented something. They were really, really good at something. Now people get attention by being a victim, by claiming that somehow something to them is not fair, and they get attention for it. A couple of weeks ago, liberals were pulling their hair out and going into meltdown mode when one of the jurors, in fact, actually the juror foreman over the grand jury that's looking into whether or not to indict former President Donald Trump, she started giving interviews on CNN and PMSNBC and other news outlets, and it became very apparent that though she may be a young woman, a young adult, she was incredibly immature, almost cartoonish. And she talked openly in interviews how disappointed she was that she wasn't going to actually get to one of her jobs as the jury foreman, as she got to swear people in who were giving testimony. and she really wanted to swear in President Donald Trump. She said, I just thought it would be really cool to be able to look at him and do you solemnly swear to tell the whole truth? And she was very cartoonish about it and acting like, I don't know, one of the characters you see on a really bad Disney TV show. It was just kind of and serious-minded commentators, even at some of the controlled media outlets like CNN, ABC, NBC, etc., were looking at her and they were just like, this person can't be for real. And they began to lament that President Trump's legal team will have a field day with this and with this person. Not to mention, Donald Trump has said from the beginning, this was a witch hunt. It's a witch hunt. It's a witch hunt. And it turns out when they looked into this juror foreman's social media pages, she's a practicing Wiccan. She's a witch. She's a witch who acts like a cartoonish buffoon, and there she is. But sadly, here's the thing. That's the way a lot of young people in that age group are acting now. There's jobs aplenty out there that they just can't get people to come in and work because there is this just sense of entitlement, and I want to do what I want to do when I want to do it, and if I get around to it, I don't know that you're going to hold me to a commitment of actually making me show up and to work. They want equity. They want an equal outcome without putting in a lot of the work and effort and what it took to get there. And again, Chris Rock talked about the indignity that his grandmother had to deal with in the South of the 1950s of not being able to go to a white dentist and having to go to a veterinarian as a human being to have a tooth removed. But now you flip the script and here we are in 2023 and his mother gets on an airplane and flies first class to France twice a year to spend time with Chris Rock's daughter, who lives in Paris, who's going to culinary school. Chris Rock, who himself grew up poor, but because he has talent and he has ability, he's been able to turn that into a really good living for his family, as have many people from black communities, whether it be as athletes, as entertainers, as political figures, those who have gone on to excel in business, who have created businesses, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. We understand that there are times in this life that there are fair and unfair advantages over people. But yet, if everybody is given the freedom to have opportunity, well, at some point, yeah, you get some luck, you get a helping hand here and there, but you have got to be able to stand on your own feet. You've got to be able to prove that you've got value, that you can do this. So Bernie Sanders said, well, I side with equality. The socialist liberals' heads have had to exploded when he said that. And I don't think Bill Maher meant to trip him up like that. Because Bernie Sanders, in being a Democrat socialist, is supposed to fall on the equity side. Liberty, equality, fraternity. The European value that everybody ends up the same. But when you guarantee an outcome, you automatically have put your finger on the scale. Like a few years ago when the government basically stepped in and said there will be no more light bulbs with filament in them. You're all going to go to LED, whether you want to or not. It's just like the government and governments right now regulating things regarding electric cars in certain states, saying after such and such date you won't be able to buy a gasoline vehicle in our state. And what you're doing is you're putting your fingers on the scale and you're mandating an outcome that most experts agree we are nowhere near ready for that outcome, especially to happen over the next couple of years. So, though I don't think Bill Maher meant to do it, he got Bernie Sanders to admit the obvious. You cannot guarantee an outcome and still say you believe in, quote, freedom. It's as ludicrous as listening to Chuck E. Cheese Schumer saying that what Tucker Carlson is doing and releasing videos of what happened on January 6th, that is, quote, a threat to democracy. Wait, what? How is that a threat to democracy? Giving us more visual that we're now seeing things that we didn't see before, like the so-called QAnon shaman being escorted through the Capitol by multiple police officers, being allowed into the Senate chamber. He was the poster boy, the face of this is what an insurrection looks like. Look at this Chewbacca-looking guy with the Viking helmet. You know, this was a existential threat to democracy. This makes January 6th worse than what happened on Pearl Harbor or even 9/11. It's all contrived bullhawk. And Tucker Carlson he's cherry-picking the videos that he's showing us. No, that's what happened to us for the last 2 years. We only saw videos that only depicted one narrative. And now all of a sudden, as we see more and more videos, we're starting to find out, wait, that police officer didn't get killed that day. There he is walking around, and it's time-stamped. And by the way, Chuck E. Cheese Schumer and Mitch McConnell and that useless rhino good-for-nothing Mitnius Romnius, Tucker Carlson ran all the video past the Capitol Police again to verify, yes, this video is authentic. None of them have actually pointed out the fact that what Tucker Carlson did, that he had doctored video or that he had skewed what we're actually seeing. And then Whoopi Goldberg over on the Hags at the View actually saying that what Tucker Carlson is doing is it's Orwellian. It's like 1984. He's basically telling you that what your eyes are seeing, they're not seeing. No, Whoopi. No. That's what your side has been doing for 2 years. By controlling the visuals that we did see, you were able to set the narrative. And what you're really upset about is now we see the shaman was being allowed in, and it was one of him and like 9 police officers. He was no threat to them. They could have slapped cuffs on him at any moment, and they didn't. The police officer that was hit in the head with a fire extinguisher and died at the Capitol. Didn't happen. Didn't happen. Oh, and Ray Epps, the guy that's constantly seen walking around saying, we got to go into the Capitol. Democrats said we interviewed him. He never actually went in the Capitol. Just leave him alone. He didn't breach the Capitol. Tucker Carlson showed the video of him on the Capitol steps that he had actually breached the line and went up the steps. Bump, ba-dump, bump. So what they're really upset about is because you have access to information now, thanks to the First Amendment. The First Amendment is an existential threat to democracy. When politicians now start talking about a threat to democracy, and Fox News, Rupert Murdoch, you need to stop Tucker Carlson from what? Freedom of the press? Giving Americans information? You actually have members of both political parties now espousing censorship and misdefining equality. It's all there to see. Just pay attention.